The shutdown of Shanghai has been extended to include its entire population of over 25 million people, as Chinese authorities remain committed to their zero-COVID strategy. For more, I have Fabian Kretschmer live on the line. Fabian, it's good to have you on.
Hello.
Right, Fabian, let's start off then with what has been shared about the reason behind the rampant spread of COVID-19 in Shanghai as opposed to perhaps other Chinese cities.
Well, I mean, it might be surprising that even today the numbers keep rising. We have 20,000 cases. Yesterday it was a little less, but almost the same. And yeah, it's the biggest outbreak basically since Wuhan, the biggest numbers. To me, it shows clearly two aspects. And one is that even the very strict measures against the virus, the epidemiological measures in China, seem not to be enough to counter Omicron, which is more infectious. And so it was only a matter of time that this would happen. But yeah, it surprised us all. And I mean, the vaccination rate in Shanghai is very high. So I think it was spreading probably a lot longer and was not detected for a long time.
Right. Now, Fabian, as I mentioned earlier, Shanghai's lockdown, which began about a week ago, has been extended. What have been the implications of this measure on its population of over 25 million people?
Yeah, I can't stress this enough. It's really horrible. I mean, the 25 million people, even the more privileged people there, have really essential fear of running out of food. I know I spoke to many residents who told me that basically they haven't been able to order online. I mean, food deliveries, they only relied on what they stockpiled before, and maybe they received one bag of vegetables from the government, but that's basically it. So there's really the fear of yeah, having not enough water and not having enough food. Secondly, people are really afraid not only to get infected. That's comparatively a small fear compared to getting dragged to one of the mass isolation centers. I mean, the hygienic conditions there are also relatively horrible, and also many residents are afraid that once they get to the COVID hospitals or to the isolation centers, what will happen with their pets. There have been several videos of dogs getting killed by the health workers because they're afraid that they will spread the virus. And thirdly, the biggest fear is for families, and that's really very severe. They are afraid that if their children get infected, that they will get separated. That has happened before, that children will be carried to COVID hospitals without the parents being able to accompany them.
Right. And speaking about that, Fabian, do walk us through then the protocols that would follow once a person is confirmed to have been infected with COVID-19 there in China.
Yeah, basically it means that your residential compound gets sealed off, gets locked down, basically. And that literally means that you have a steel lock in front of your door or in front of the compound door. You physically cannot go outside. And after this week, if any one of your neighbors still tests positive, then this round of lockdown gets extended. I can, for example, talk about myself. I mean, yesterday I also went out to the supermarket, stockpiled food, I mean, canned vegetables, because I'm also worried it can happen anytime. And usually there's not much enough, not a lot of notice beforehand. So people are really afraid that their compound might get locked down just for one positive case.
Right. And Fabian, what has been the public response to this unrelenting containment strategy in the country there?
Well, in Shanghai, you can clearly see that the anger is quite high. I mean, there were, for example, people who were shouting out of their, apartment compound, and they opened the window and then in unisono screamed against the measures. There are also videos of people who are really very desperately shouting around that they don't have food anymore, that they're running out of money because their shop has been closed. So the frustration is really, really very high, but that has not changed the stance of the government. They are more committed than ever to stick to zero COVID.
Right, and staying with that then, Fabian, what would you say are the political implications perhaps of China's zero COVID strategy?
It's a mainly political or dogmatic decision. It comes from Beijing, and the reason why they want to stick to zero COVID, I mean, it is also a concern for public health, but there are many other political aspects to it. For example, in autumn, we will have the 20th Party Congress, where state leader Xi Jinping will declare his third term in office, and the leadership doesn't want to have any infection clusters spreading around until then. And also the propaganda here, the state media has been repeated the claim for more than 2 years that the successful zero COVID strategy of China is a proof. It's a demonstration that our system works better than the West and many parts of the rest of the world where the virus is out of control. So now it's really difficult to change their own path.
Fabien, according to US media, some pundits say the shutdown of Shanghai may cost at least $46 billion a month, about 3% of the GDP there. That being said, what indeed are the economic consequences of this containment strategy?
They're huge and they are also long-term. I mean, this estimation that you quoted was, I think, from last week. So that has not priced in and calculated that the lockdown in Shanghai might get extended. I mean, you have to keep in mind, initially it was only a 4+4 days lockdown, and now it's an indefinite lockdown. And what I hear from companies is that they are really afraid of keeping investing in Shanghai. And as international companies, they cannot find any global talent who want to move to Shanghai anymore. It's really very difficult. So there's a damage for the reputation, but we also know that the manufacturing sector and the service sector, they're both shrinking. So right now, basically, there's an almost as big economic shock to the economy here compared to 2 years ago when there was the lockdown in Wuhan.
Right. Fabien, one final and very quick question. China has been pointing to potential COVID-19 infection arising from overseas mail and parcels. In its latest allegations, authorities there are warning against the purchase of Korean clothing, whose international delivery may reportedly bring in the virus. What do you suppose is the purpose of such remarks?
Yeah, they're using a scapegoat. I mean, scientifically, it is possible that, the surface from some imports could cause infection, but it's highly unlikely. And I think they really try to deflect the blame here. And also German pork knuckles, I mean, I'm from Germany. I know that they were also blamed at one point. That's really dangerous because it can have economic consequences, in this case, possibly for Korea, if people believe in that. And so I think it's really irresponsible.
All right then, Fabien, as always, thank you very much for your time and your thoughts.